And don't you think it's a crime when time after time after time people in the bottom, there's people living in the bottom.
Hey, welcome to the Reality Check with Charles Butler. It's Monday morning here, and we are talking about a lot of things today. You know, the Supreme Court confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett is on. Somebody's playing something in the background here. So let's. We got to talk about a couple of things. Like I said, we're going to talk about Amy Coney Barrett and her nomination. In fact, I'm trying to cut off this sound in the background. Is getting on my doggone nerves. But I guess somebody wants me to hear this junk because the Republicans keep lying. I mean, the Democrats keep lying on Amy Coney Barrett. Her record, they keep lying on Donald Trump. Oh, he doesn't want, they keep telling the same lie. He doesn't want, what do they call it? Existing illnesses. That's a lie. That's a blatant lie. That's the lie they always tell. Remember this, people. The Democrats are lying. Whenever you hear that the Republicans don't want pre-existing conditions in a healthcare bill, they're lying their blanks off. Okay. And it's just making me angry. And it should make you angry that they're lying and they think that you're so stupid. We're going to bring a good friend of mine on, Joel Gilbert. Joel is a filmmaker and author, does some great work. And, you know, I just wish and I hope that in the future he gets more distribution because some of the things that he brings to light are just so incredible that, you know, when you think you really knew the facts of a case or you knew the facts of an incident, when Joel does his investigative analysis and his investigative reporting, it's 180 out. I happened to watch Trayvon Martin film that he did over the weekend, and I also watched the George Floyd arrest. And I tell you, it doesn't change my mind much about the cop having his foot on his or his knee on his neck. Doesn't change my mind about that at all, or their response to his body. Having been in those situations, and when you have that responsibility of you can take a person's life, then you should be kind of responsible. Like I carry a weapon, so I'm always cognizant of if I ever have to pull that weapon, it's going to be justified. But you know, I grew up different. I mean, I was a taekwondoist, and part of our credo was to take a life, be justified, because they taught us to take lives in taekwondo. For those of you who don't know. And my master, by the way, was not some storefront guy. He was a Green Beret, major in the Green Beret. He was one of the first Taekwondo coaches of the U.S. Olympic team. And two boys from our dojo won gold medals the first time the Olympics allowed Taekwondo into the Olympics. So I studied under some serious people. So anyway, I'm going to bring Joel aboard. We're going to talk about his past movies and his newest venture. Welcome to the show, Joel Gilbert. How are you? Hello, Joel. Joel. I can hear Joel. I can't hear him now, though. It's amazing. Joel? Hello? Joel Gilbert? Joel? Man, what is wrong with your... Joel? I think what I'm going to do is his stuff is all messed up, man. His stuff is all messed up, so I'm going to have to do this. I'll just call in and... We'll do it through outside of the system. Won't sound quite as good, but you won't know. Yeah. Anyway, here we go.
Hi, Charles.
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Good. I'm still same thing. Cell phone or landline. It puts me on this queue. It says, "What do you want to talk about?"
Yeah. Well, I opened it up.
Joel
Yeah. Cut it off. I can hear it. Cut it off.
I just hung up.
Well, something else is in the background. Yeah, something else is in the background.
I'm on the phone on my cell now with you.
Yeah, but I hear noise in the background. Is that you?
It's not here. Not here. I'm in my office. There's not a sound going on. Totally silent.
Oh, you know what? I know what it is. Is these women haven't hung up on the other line. Let me phase them out. That's probably why you can't call in. That's probably why you can't call in. Okay. Yeah, call back in. I just took them offline.
Okay, I'm calling on my landline because it's.
Doesn't make any difference. Just do it.
It's a better connection.
Yeah, just do it.
It says, please say what you want to talk about.
Hold on. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Joel Gilbert interview. Okay, I just did. I hit pound. You'll now be placed in the queue. So I'm in the queue.
Hold on.
And I can hear some people in the back.
Yeah, I can too. Hold on. Yeah, I just cut them off. Okay, I got you now, Joel. Hey, man, what's going on?
I hear you now.
Yeah, hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Good. You get to watch the movie over the weekend?
Yeah, I did. Oh, so you couldn't hear any of that? Yeah, I saw the movies. Yeah, you know, that whole George Floyd thing, you gave a totally different perspective. It still doesn't change my attitude about how the cops handle the guy and put their foot on his or their knee on his neck. And it doesn't change that. But it's, you know, his whole demeanor and that whole thing, you know, I don't know why cops think that it's okay to throw people in the back of a damn squad car. They don't want to get in the back of a squad car. In fact, it's very uncomfortable. For those of you who've never been in the back of a squad car, you have about maybe 6 inches between you and this metal seat in front of, or it's this metal structure in front of the cops. If you have 6 inches, I mean, it's very uncomfortable. And I've noticed that white cops, they have no problem with throwing black people in the back of a squad car. I've had that happen to me, and I'll never allow it to happen to me again unless it's warranted. I mean, they just think it's just routine. Oh, we're just going to arrest you. It's just routine. Oh, I had cops approach me, Joel. They go, well, are you on paper? So you know what I ask? What does that mean? Am I on paper?
Yeah.
You know, so.
Did you watch the Trayvon movie though? That's
I watched the Trayvon movie. Yeah, I watched that too. Yeah, that was was good. You know, the thing there is there was so much, but this is what I don't understand. If the prosecutor knew that the witness wasn't the witness that Crump put on the stand, why didn't he ask for a mistrial?
The prosecutors were in on the tremendous amount of pressure from the White House, the FBI, the entire country, the mob. I think the
what does that have to do with?
Just said,
what does that have to do with following the law and doing the right thing? You're making excuses.
Nothing. I don't have any excuse for that. Look, the prosecutors withheld evidence from the defense up till just before the trial. They didn't give them the cell phone records till just before the trial. So I think it's just criminality. So you have a prosecutor who's withholding evidence. I don't care if the White House is involved. I don't care if Jesus Christ is involved. It was wrong. And Zimmerman was entitled to what? A fair trial. Hello, a fair trial. And I'm not a Zimmerman fan because I felt that he should have kept his ass in the car. His excuse, I got out. I don't believe any of that. You know, to me, it's inconsequential. The bottom line is when those two guys squared off, Zimmerman got beat and he shot the boy. So, hey, you know, his little punk ass should have stayed in his car because he couldn't fight. But, you know, he thought because he had his gun that equal the playing field. I was explaining to people before you came on. I don't know if you heard this dialogue, but I was explaining to people that as a concealed carry person myself, I'm always conscious of the fact that if I need to take a life, it must be justified. In service, when you're in combat, the justification are the rules of engagement. So you don't shoot civilians. The problem that we have in these wars we fight today, or these skirmishes we fight today, is you have civilians running around with guns, and they don't have on uniforms. Well, remember the Zimmerman case. He got jumped. He got his brains beat out. He was screaming for several minutes, "Help!
Right.
Help! Help! Help!"
Right.
It wasn't like he's like, "I got my gun. Shoot the first guy that you know sneezes on me."
Right.
I don't think he legitimately remembered he had the gun because he kept screaming, "Help me! Help me!" The guy came out of the apartment and said, "Stop! Stop!" and call the cops. And
but he didn't. But he didn't run. But he didn't run over there. But he didn't run over there. He didn't run over there and push Trayvon off the guy.
No, he should have. Everybody did a lot of stuff wrong. But I'm just saying, I don't think
Zimmerman was looking to shoot anybody that breathed on him. He
Right.
really only at the last resort, when he felt he couldn't breathe, the blood going down his nose, there's no one to help him, that he fired the shot. So it's a little different than what you're saying.
The bottom line is this: he shouldn't have got his behind out of the car. He couldn't fight in the first damn place. He shouldn't have got out of the car. He should have let the police handle it. I know in that situation,
he should have rolled. Look, Trayvon came over and circled his car,
Right.
which is a pretty intimidating thing. He
Right.
could have or should have rolled down his window and said, "Excuse me, sir, do you live in the area? We've had some robbery." But by that time he's a little too scared because the guy was circling and
he should have drove off. That's what I would have done. I was in a situation, and see, this is the deal. When you carry, like I told you, I'm a concealed carry guy. Whenever I'm confronted, there's only one thing. The first thing on my mind is to evade, to escape, to get out of the situation, not to escalate the situation. I was at Joel, I think I shared this with you when we talked. I was coming from Evanston. Evanston is just north of Chicago, and I was coming really from Wilmette. I was in a park doing some work, and I come to a stoplight in Evanston, and there are all these Black Lives Matter people. In fact, in these upscale white communities in Wilmette, and
they're all white. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about Wilmette, which is they're like right behind Beverly Hills in terms of income per capita. But they had a lot of Black Lives Matter signs out. But I get to Evanston, which is kind of a mixed community. Professionals, working class people. But anyway, Black Lives Matter is out on this road called Sheridan Road. They're out there, and they're, on the street corners, and they're holding up traffic. And so I pull up to the stoplight, and I'm the first guy in line. And I'm smoking a cigar. I got the sunroof back, the sun's shining, having my sunglasses, and I have on a Michigan ball cap. And they're parading Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. I'm steady smoking my cigar, and I'm paying them attention, but they don't know that I'm paying attention because I didn't acknowledge them. I didn't blow the horn. I didn't do anything. They came over, started beating on my car, man. They circled my car, started beating on my car. Now, could I have said
all white dudes?
Well, it was a few blacks, but mostly white people. And I'm going, and I'm looking at them like, really? And I'm thinking, well, I wasn't really scared or terrified. And even if I had been, if they'd knocked my windows out, I still wouldn't have shot anybody. But the bottom line is these people are violent. They are ideological. They're zealots, and they think like the hippies and the what do you call those kids? The flower children and all that anti-war movement. Those people were extremely violent. Extremely violent.
Oh yeah,
and
they were quote unquote trained Marxists. Those people.
Well, I don't know about the anti-war. I'm talking about when I was coming along. We had the anti-war movement with the Vietnam folks, and these were just regular college students.
Marxists. Those people were ideologues, like you said.
And the thing was, I always resented them because they attacked law enforcement. They attacked other students who didn't agree with their agenda, and it's not fair. Right. It's not right.
Yeah, well, this whole movement. The point of my film was to say this whole movement was based on a hoax. They're using Trayvon Martin, using Zimmerman for these political agendas that they continue to this day, unfortunately.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, the only good thing to come out about this is that cops are being looked at a lot differently because we have these body cams. And when you look at like the shooting in North Charleston, if anyone, and those things have happened here in Chicago, but we didn't have body cams in those days. But we had eyewitnesses who proved credible enough to convict cops, but nothing ever happened to it because cops were immune to prosecution or whatever. I don't know what they call it. But that cop who shot that man in the back on a traffic stop in Charleston, North Carolina, I mean, you just see this guy. The guy takes off running. The cop coolly pulls out his gun and shoots the guy in the back. I don't shoot it.
I don't shoot. That didn't happen like that. No.
Yeah, it did.
That one, he chased the guy.
No, he didn't.
They did. Unless we're not talking about the same incident.
I'm talking about Charleston, North Carolina. That fat cop did not chase anybody. He stood there, pulled out his gun, and shot that dude in the back.
I'm thinking of a different incident.
And even the one in Atlanta where the black guy got in a fight with the two cops. Now I'm thinking this: if I'm drinking and I'm talking to somebody for 40 minutes, I'm going to sober up, especially if it's a cop. They talk for 42 minutes And then they decided to arrest him. Like I said, white cops have no respect for black folks. Absolutely no. They think it's just common. I'm going to arrest you and put you in the, that's bullshit. I mean, here in this city, we had a police superintendent named Gary. Oh God, what was Gary's last name? How quickly we forget. But anyway, Gary, I'll look it up while I'm talking to you. Gary was one of the best police chiefs we've ever had. He's a white dude from Boston. He grew up under Chief Braddock. And I don't know if you know anything about Chief Braddock, but Chief Bratton. But Chief Bratton was one hell of a cop. He went out, he was in Boston, he was New York. He helped turn around the New York NYPD, and then he went out to LA and he turned around their NYPD. Just a hell of a great cop. And I've had an opportunity to see him speak and talk to him. Just wonder if more policemen were like him or police like him. Gary McCarthy was the guy's name I'm thinking of. He's here. He was police chief here in Chicago. Everybody loved Gary. I would go to meetings on the South Side with ministers. They loved this guy. The black people, they loved Gary McCarthy. And you know why? Because Gary was real police. Gary said, hey, don't bust somebody for a lid of grass. You come in the station, you bust somebody for a bag of weed, you come in the station and spend 5 hours processing somebody for a bag. No, hell no. Get your behind out there on the street and police. Because, that's what the cops are doing. And, people, I'm telling you, they loved Gary McCarthy. I love Gary. Gary's a great, the best police commissioner we ever had. And the guy that they just fired, Eddie Johnson, he was pretty good too. So, but these are cops who make cops accountable, and they want them to police the community, because the black community, when they reached out to Gary, they said, we need more cops. We need more cops here arresting these people. What are these liberals doing, Joe? They're putting criminals back in the community. Or criminal justice reform. Well, you didn't go to prison because you were still in tiddlywinks. You didn't go to prison because you were a minor criminal. You went to prison because you were a habitual criminal.
That's right. All right.
So look, man, let's talk about your upcoming project.
Well, I don't really talk about my upcoming projects. Okay. They're kind of like super secret till I'm ready to roll.
Okay, well then let's talk about whatever.
BLM or George Floyd or Trayvon or
BLM is a farce. You know that. BLM is a farce.
You dropped out. Say again.
I said BLM is a farce.
Of course, it's a farce.
And the real black life. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was gonna say on the George Floyd thing. Okay. You got a little different. I didn't make that movie, that part. I just forwarded that to you, but I learned from it, like you did, that it was a whole different scenario.
Oh yeah, no question.
Very typical. Where,
no question.
Where Trump shows up and says this is definitely racism, even though there's no basis for that.
Well, there is in that you're black.
Here's what I want to tell you. The whole thing about the body cams was just another ruse in Ferguson. It was just another ruse. It was another demand, because they had body cams, as you saw in George Floyd, and Keith Ellison wouldn't release the body cam for like 4 months because it showed a different story.
What? That's the George Floyd thing.
What?
That's George Floyd.
Yeah, and George Floyd, you saw the body cam footage in that video, but it was held back for 4 months.
Okay.
So the entire idea that we just need body cams. No, that was another just excuse to go to the next demand.
Yeah, which was rioting, burning, looting, which is totally unjustified. If they cared about
body cams, they would have released it and said, you know what, this wasn't what it looked like. It wasn't as bad as it looked like. It was a whole different story, but they refused to release it.
Well, the different story is that even the cops, see, this is the thing about George Floyd that ticks me off. Everybody, not just the protesters, not just black people, but everyone who saw this said, hey, whoa, wait a minute. This dude should have been more careful about how he was dealing with this person. There was no question about that. So what are you rioting for? Everybody said that this cop made a mistake or whatever he did, or whatever.
Plus they arrested all 4 of them for murder, even though they hadn't even investigated yet. That's usually the demand is let's lynch these guys right away.
Yeah.
That was from the Trayvon thing.
Hey, well, welcome.
Get the guy arrested.
Hey, well, welcome to being black in America. You guilty until proven innocent. I remember, as I think I shared with you, I was jogging down the street in New York, and these 2 cops jumped the curb with their car, took out their guns, and pointed on me and said, "What are you running from?" And then you and I were talking. You said, "Well, that's you can say, well, that's anecdotal." Well, if you've ever had a gun pulled on you, it's not so damn anecdotal. I look at Jeff Blake, the tennis player, standing in front of a upscale, one of the most expensive hotels in New York, standing there dressed immaculately, having a big racist ass white cop come up and throw him on the ground and say, "You look like a suspect." He wouldn't have did a white guy like that. We do live in America. We don't have Gestapo, but I see this happening. I should see this happening in my old neighborhood in Kenwood, which is a very upscale community. In fact, Barack Obama has a house on the corner. And in my mind, I'm envisioning a stop that I saw between my house and Barack's house, which is about a block. Well, at that time, we're a block away from each other, where these cops threw this young black student up on a hot hood of a hot car, and the guy said, "Hey, the hood of your car is hot, man. Can you get me off this?" So they took him off the hood of the car and threw him on the ground and put their foot on the back of his back. And so I stood there and I took pictures, and they told me to move on. I said, "I don't have to move on. In fact, I'm calling the police." And they said, "We are the police." I said, "I know. That's why I'm calling the police. Maybe I'll get a real one."
Well, that's good.
So I
watch Cops. Watch Cops. You watch the Cops TV show?
Yeah, I hate that show.
Well, I do. I see them doing the same thing to white people too. So, but I don't have the experience with black people. But that's all I know. I see that show, and I do see them put their knee on back of people's neck. I see them tackling.
Yeah,
people.
but what you see is, go ahead, Joe.
I see them overcautious with everybody.
No, I don't see them over.
They're super overcautious.
Joe, they would do the same thing to me for no reason. In fact, let me just tell you a quick story. I'm gonna do this in 60 seconds. I used to hang out at a Starbucks where a lot of cops frequented. So they were looking for a young white male who was robbing banks. And they would talk to me about it, right? So one day these guys get the call and they run out of Starbucks and they're right on this guy, right? So they're telling me this story a few days later. And they say they finally caught the guy. And they said, "We asked him, where were you? We came out, we were right on you, and all of a sudden you disappeared." They said, "What did you do?" He said, "I sat down at Starbucks and had a cup of coffee. And you guys ran right past me." Now, if they were looking for a black guy who was 6'2", 250 pounds, they would stop any black guy on the street, or 150 pounds. It wouldn't make any difference. You'd be hassled. That's the difference. So you can say, race isn't involved. The hell if it's not.
I don't know. I mean, I would ask, were there 80% white people in the Starbucks, so he kind of blended in, or?
Of course he blended in. Yeah, of course he blended. That's my whole point. He blended in. So, but they still didn't stop. They still didn't harass any white guys or throw any white guys on the ground who fit his profile. That's the other side of my point.
Okay.
So for me, as a black man in America, a naval officer, a patriot, a veteran, I mean, there's any black man that says racism doesn't exist is a goddamn lie. I used to say to Clarence Thomas, who talked about, racism, I said, take your big fat behind out of your luncheon at Georgetown and try to catch a cab. You won't be able to catch one. That's why you send your assistants out to flag down the cab, because they'll stop for black folks. You go to New York. If you go in uptown, cabs will pass you by. If you sit on the other side of the street.
Wait a minute. You're saying all those cab drivers from Somalia are racist?
I'm saying that they're not. I've never seen a lot of Somali cab drivers in New York. I saw a lot of.
New York, they're Indian. They're from India. They're from
Sikhs and stuff like that. But in DC, no, they don't want to go to a black. I'm talking. See, Joel, I've been going. Listen, let me tell you something. I've been going to DC since 1973, so I've saw a totally different DC. With all these damn Somalis coming here in the last 20 years or so, that's one thing. But at the end of the day, I remember taking George Bush home to his house in Georgetown to Laura after we'd been hanging out. So I know what I'm talking about. I know about my experiences. And like I said, there was a time when Clarence Thomas could not catch a cab from Georgetown. All right. So, I mean, that's just the way it was, and don't talk about going over to Anacostia. I remember I didn't know what Anacostia was. I was just going over there to see this girl, and I got in a cab at the airport, And this white dude, right? He said, "Hey man, do you know where you going?" And I'm like, "No, I was in my uniform." He's like, "Do you know where you going?" I said, "No, where am I going?" He said, "This is a rough part of town, dude. I don't think you really want to be over here." He said, "But I'm gonna take you over." And so he said, "I'm gonna wait for you to get in the house." After we got over, he said, "I'm gonna wait for you to get in the house." He said, "It's really bad." And then I'm gonna try to get out of here without getting robbed. I mean, I'm not justifying. I'm just talking about it's like Harlem, man. Harlem used to be bad. Now that it's gentrifying, it's not as bad as it used to be. But when I started going to New York back in the mid '70s, man, Harlem, man, you try walking down the street by yourself, and you were a stranger. Please, dude, different worlds, different times.
All right, let's do this. Are you live, or what's your?
I'm totally live.
How do you do your show?
I'm totally live. In fact, we got listeners, we got viewers out here on YouTube, and we're broadcasting live on RedStateTalkRadio.com. So we got anywhere from 30,000 to 50,000 people listening to us every 15 minutes.
Okay. When are we on?
We're on right now.
Oh, good. Well, let's talk about the Trayvon hoax then.
What about it? We did talk about it. We both agreed. This guy Crump, he can't put two sentences together, man, but he rich now.
Well, I'll tell you how he became rich. I mean, I studied Crump. Crump, appeared pretty much on the national scene in the Trayvon Martin case back in 2012.
Right.
Of course, he said, and he brought Al Sharpton in. He said, "We called up New York City. We wanted someone with a track record to help us out." Of course, the track record was the Tawana Brawley race hoax. It was the Freddie's Fashion Mart massacre, Crown Heights riots. This is who he brought in there. And Crump, I found out in 2012, had a tax lien of over $106,000. He'd been wheeling and dealing as a slumlord. He owned about 50 different slum-like apartments all around Tallahassee. And he acquired them when he was the Tallahassee Housing Commissioner.
Okay.
And he doesn't even put that on his resume. So I'm suspecting that he had some kind of conflict of interest. How was he acquiring all these properties? Was he getting some kind of government loans?
Right.
So he was in some financial trouble in 2012. And that might explain why he was in on this fake witness hoax, which, as I establish in my movie, The Trayvon Hoax, that this is where it all started, where we had the big racial division, the political agenda, the media, even the fake news kind of started in 2012 in the modern era, where they took a story and completely flipped it on its lid. When you see the Trayvon hoax, by the way, you go to the TrayvonHoax.com. I got the movie for free. You can watch it right there. It's also a book. And you can see what really happened and how Trayvon's mother, Sabrina Fulton, who just ran for Miami-Dade Commission, Benjamin Crump, the prosecutors, they were in on putting up a fake witness, this girl, Rachel Gentile. People remember her as the chubby Haitian-American girl that couldn't read her writing. She could barely talk. 150 pounds heavier and 2 years older than Trayvon. That was his girlfriend all of a sudden. And I proved that the real girlfriend was a girl named Diamond Eugene. That's the girl that met Sabrina Fulton, and Crump spoke about her, said she's 16 years old. Her name is Diamond Eugene. They're in love.
She cute.
And I
I'll
showed
tell you
how
that.
2 weeks later, the prosecutors came down to pick her up to interview this girl. And that's when 18-year-old Rachel Gentile showed up and pretended to be this other girl, and that they were all in on it. And that's where the Black Lives Matter started, out of that movement, out of that case, because they said they didn't respect the jury system that exonerated Zimmerman a second time. People forget that Zimmerman was exonerated by the local police, complete investigation, eyewitnesses, physical evidence, 911. It's over. Only because they got this girl, Diamond Eugene, on the phone, did a phone interview with Crump under tremendous pressure, 16 years old. She simply repeated back to Crump some of his media narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And then Barack Obama got involved. If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. LeBron James got sucked into it like he does all these race hoaxes. And the state of Florida was pressured into appointing a special prosecutor. And they came down and went to Diamond Eugene's house. I take you on the kind of the investigative journey in the film and show you. I went and found her house. And then I found the real girl, and she's in the movie. And I kind of unraveled the whole thing about how they switched this witness. And in the end, no one has, I think, suffered more from this Black Lives Matter nonsense than Black Americans. Biggest fans of the film. You can watch check out all the comments on YouTube, almost 5,000 comments. A lot of them are black kids. They're saying, man, I grew up on this Trayvon stuff. I thought if I walk outside, I don't get shot because of my skin color.
You will.
One girl
well,
said,
let me tell them.
Well,
they will. No,
well,
there's no question.
One girl said I was afraid to grow up. My black son, I was afraid for him to grow up in America. But now I realize we got played. And the Black Lives Matter stuff.
That's stupid on her part, because at the end of the day, that's stupid on her part. Because if you don't raise your son to be suspect of the police and be raised like I was raised, I can tell you this about cops, and I will never raise my child to be at the mercy or to trust cops, because they're totally untrustable. And you have to keep your wits about you. You have to keep your calmness about you. You have to understand that you're in a different game when you're a Black American. And we used to teach our kids that. When we headed up a program, we plus had 1,000 kids go through young Black men go through our program, and we always taught them about how to interface with police officers, and that's always to be respectful, even when you're being disrespected, and because the only place that you can really deal with a policeman is in court, and that's what we preach to our kids and to our young men, and I would never, I grew up trusting the police, and the police are your friend. Man, I was 13 years old when police took me to a graveyard and put a gun to my head. I mean, really? Don't talk to me about that shit.
Let me ask you this. What about some of the Black leaders, the proper lessons I don't hear, which lessons like the Michael Brown case, all these guys, Trayvon, the lesson should be, don't fight the cops, don't fight people, don't do drugs, don't commit crimes. Let's start with that one. And most of these incidents,
well, see, hey, Joe, let me repeat. That's the narrative that's out there, and you might see that. But the bottom line is, I can do a survey of 1,000 Black men today, all professional, okay, whether it was my nephew, my godson, my nephews, who are all college students. My godson is a major attorney at a very big company right now. He's way ahead of his track. That's how bright the boy is. But he was at Columbia wearing a hoodie. It was cold outside. He's wearing a hoodie on Columbia's campus, walking to his room, his apartment building. Cops pull up, do a search, whatever that thing they used to do, search and frisk on him on Columbia's campus. He got his book bag full of law books. He was in Columbus Law School. So when you talk to me, it doesn't make a, because all you guys want to do is you want to focus on, the media wants to focus on the Black criminals, and there are too many, and my thing is, I don't care, and I've said this before, I don't care if the police shoot a Black criminal. I don't care if the police abuse a Black criminal's civil rights or constitutional rights. I don't care if he beats his brains out. You know why? Because he's nothing but a predator on the Black community. See, that's where I differ with the rest of these people who were like, George Floyd wasn't.
All right, let me ask.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you. Okay, look, I grew up in East Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
so we had lots of Black kids in school.
Mm-hmm.
This is the '80s. I never
Mm-hmm.
heard the N-word. We're all friends.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard of any of them
Mm-hmm.
being hassled by the cops.
Mm-hmm.
Is what you're describing a big city thing where there's
No, it's not a big city thing. It's not a big city thing.
Pockets of a high crime. Well, there's pockets of high crime which are going to be Black areas.
Joe,
and the cops are overly aggressive.
That's bull. That's bull. And you need to go back. You're an investigative guy. Go back and talk to your friends who grew up, and I'm sure they will call the N-word, and I'm sure they had incidents of racism directed toward them. Go call them. Next time you come on the show, call them and let's talk about it. I'm sure they did that's not true. Because I know small town America. My dad's from small town America. Tried to Funiac Springs, Florida. That's small town America. And What year?
What year?
What do you mean? What year?
I'm talking about the 80s. By the 80s,
that's not true?
Grew up in Florida,
that's not true.
Maybe that's something else.
That's not true. I was down there in the 70s. I was in Pensacola in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and there was certainly racism down there. I went to a damn Krispy Kreme and couldn't get served in my uniform, dude. I mean, what you talking about? I mean, there is. I do not believe that your friends did not have racial incidents. They certainly did. They certainly did. You just don't know about them because they're not, you probably weren't part of that. But ask them. Call them and ask them. Don't take my word for it.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Because, I mean,
you
that's
want to
just...
talk about the George Floyd stuff, because that has a lot of interesting new twists to it.
It does.
Time you learn something new.
It does have something. When I saw those videos, I was like, ooh, he was... He was obviously under duress.
Look, what we learned, what we talked about is how the body cam footage really told a more complete and bigger story.
It did.
But the number one, the AG Keith Ellison of Minnesota wouldn't release the body cams. I thought the whole point of the Ferguson thing was we want body cams so we don't have these incidences. Turns out we had the body cams and they refused to release it, and that would have put a whole different story. Now, like everybody else, I didn't think it looked very good with the guy putting his knee on the back of his head.
No, it wasn't on the back of his head. It wasn't on the back of his head. It was on his knee, which cut off the blood to his brain. It's called, when we put. I do. Wait, Joe. What you know and what I know are two different things, and what I do in my background are two different things.
I'm going to tell you what I saw. I watch the TV show Cops all the time, and I see them put their knee in the back of the guy's neck. They sit on these people. Now, it doesn't look comfortable. I wouldn't want that to happen to me. I thought everybody looked at that and said, "Oh my God, that he did that for way too long." But had they released the body cam footage, it would have told the story differently. Where, of course, George Floyd was saying, "I was hooping," meaning he was injecting himself with drugs, which turned out to be 4 times the amount of fentanyl that could kill anybody. And he was complaining he was having trouble breathing when he was standing up.
So why didn't they call the police? So then the question becomes, why in the hell didn't they call the paramedics? That's the other question. If he said, "I'm hooping," call the paramedics. You put the guy under arrest him, send him to the hospital. He's under arrest. Deal with it. No, they didn't give a shit. And the bottom line was,
let me give the perspective I see is the cops every day. They spend a lot of time arresting guys, chasing guys that they've been called down to help somebody or rescue somebody because there's some guy on PCP or meth and he's acting out, he's on drugs.
Right.
And this is half of what they do, especially in big cities, chasing guys on drugs. Now, sometimes those guys on drugs, they start babbling and they say things that are crazy and they say, "I can't breathe," and they say, "I have this." They say, "I'm taking drugs. I'm on probation. I'm not on probation." Sometimes those guys attack the cops.
Yep.
Sometimes they don't. They don't want to go to jail.
Right.
Sometimes the cop is killed. I've seen that. But it's true that the cops are not equipped to simply diagnose what level of drugs or overdose any particular guy is on.
Well, at the end of the day,
so they try to secure the guy so he doesn't hurt anybody, and critical time can pass. Now, they did call the paramedics eventually, obviously too late for George Floyd. But had he died in an apartment on his own, they would have said it was a fentanyl overdose.
But he didn't.
My point, though, is the media blew it out of proportion by the government hiding the.
Well, I don't think this is what I see, and I saw all the stuff that you saw, and all that's well and good, and the guy's a criminal and he has a criminal background, but the guy he didn't resist, and he's a big dude. He could have resisted. He didn't. I didn't see him resisting the officers, and no one said he resisted. The problem that I have is that when you put pressure, as you talk about, on the back of somebody's neck, that's not putting pressure on that I forget what artery we call it, but when we put people to sleep in a sleeper hole, that's the artery that you cut off. The
carotid artery.
Yeah,
but it's in every police manual. Every police manual tells them to sit on a guy's neck and on the back. I see it. It's in every damn manual, including the Minnesota manual. So here's what's going to happen. Like every case, it goes to court a year later, and it turns out we learn everything we were told the first day is not true. And then the Black Lives Matter gang is going to reject the verdict. They're going to say the verdict, we didn't get our lynching. We had to have a lynching. We didn't get a lynching.
Joe, let me tell you something.
And then they're going to riot, and there's no more police.
Let me tell you something.
Have been defunded.
Let me tell you. Well, they haven't been defunded yet. They said they were going to, and they changed that. They quickly reversed that, like a couple of weeks ago. The mayor reversed that craziness. But look, because it is crazy. Black Lives Matter. I am not a Black Lives Matter fan or person or believe in that bullshit. I always say, if Black lives really mattered, you'd address the black on black crime, which is like 84%. I'm sorry, 86% of crimes committed against black people are by other black people, just like 80-some% of crimes committed against white people are committed by other white people. And something like 14% of blacks commit crimes against white, and something like 12% of whites commit crimes against blacks. Those are just the statistics. So, the stuff that we see on TV, the stuff that we see in the movies about that dangerous black, that's all stuff that's been perpetrated in Hollywood since the inception of Hollywood. Hollywood and the entertainment business, like the minstrel business, is a racist medium, and it perpetuates stereotypes that still exist today. I mean, I remember I used to go to my ex-wife and I owned a home in Michigan. We used to go over there every weekend almost. And I used to pull in this gas station to get gas habitually, almost every week. So I pull in the gas station one weekend, and there's rebar that's exposed, and you can bust your tire. So I go inside the store, and I tell the lady, hey, you got some rebar that's exposed out here. You need to put up some barriers to let people know not to drive over it. And there was a white guy standing there, and I'd seen these people time and time again, right? I mean, almost every weekend. So I come back.
No good deed goes unpunished.
No. I come back, and the man says to me, white guy, he says to me, he said, "Sir, I want you to know that I really appreciated you telling us about the rebar out there." He said, "But my colleague, the woman who works with me, she called you the N-word, and she just ranted and raved about how you were this N talking to her." And he said, "And I told my managers she got fired. She'll never work for this." But see, those are the good things about America that happens. Okay. But so often, and it doesn't become it's a white or black thing, but it happens to white people too. We have bad cops, man. We have people who are not doing the right things, and I think this whole thing, Joel, when it boils down, it's going to be good for the country, so that cops are held accountable for their actions or their inaction or their lack of action. Like,
well, look, let me point out two things. The problem I have, of course, is where they take one incident and they come in. Ben Crump comes and says, "This is definitely racist." There's been no basis, for that to say this is racist. And then they say, "Here's our list of political demands. Here's my GoFundMe. Give me $10 million," and on and on. But I want to explain the background of this thing about defunding the cops means eliminate the cops.
Not gonna happen.
We don't want cops.
Not gonna happen, bro.
Now, I just want to tell you where the theory comes from. So this is based on the 1960s SDS, Weather Underground.
Right.
Were against cops.
Right.
Communism and Marxism are against cops. Why?
Right.
Because police are the basis of society. They protect private property. Communism does not believe in private property. So once you get rid of the cops, there's no more private property. Anybody can come and take your property, take your store, go in your house, kick you out. So that's the idea is of defund the cops means completely a revolution to destroy society as we know it. And that's the socialist dogma. We want to rebuild the world in this different manner in our own image. And we're going to be the gods of this utopia. And that's why I made my film, There's No Place Like Utopia.
Not going to happen, man, because at the end of the day, Joel, at the end of the day, we're going to have police. We need to have police. This whole Black Lives Matter stuff by these, what do they call themselves? They call themselves they call themselves trained Marxists. And so two are lesbian, and I think one's a transgender. I can't really pick up what's going on there. But I know that there's nothing that they have to say that's important to me and that's important to the people that I know. And I'm telling you that, again, white people are being bamboozled by this Black Lives Matter thing.
Corporations, they misunderstand the slogan Black Lives Matter. Everybody, of course. So all this is a rebranding of Marxism under the name of anti-racism. Because everybody's anti-racist pretty much. So you say, I'm anti-racist. So these corporations, they say, yeah, we'll give money to Black Lives Matter. But they don't realize there's a movement behind it. It's just a front agenda to achieve a radical agenda that nobody really supports. Like
I want to at some point, I'm going to read this quote by Booker T. Washington. And I think it's just always so relevant that Booker T says that there's a class of black people, of colored people that need this this controversy of these grievances to go on. And I love it. I love it because it's so right. He says there is a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro before the public. And he's absolutely right. And then he goes on to say that I just lost it. He goes on to say that having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles, they have grown into the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs, i.e. W.E.B. Du Bois, i.e. Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson. See, nobody ever really...
I would take that to the next level and say the Democrat Party wants to continue to air, advertise, and exacerbate racial grievances because they know the 95% voting bloc that votes for Democrats is the basis to their power. If they lose even half of that, you're not going to have Democrats in power anymore.
Well, I think that's coming.
The Democrat Party became part and parcel of this.
I think that's coming, and I think that's coming because, see, everybody forgets that I always call him that dumbass Daddy King. Thought that because Kennedy lobbed in a call to his wife's son who was sitting in prison, anybody who's trying to help my son, I'm voting for them. When he said with his dumb ass, and he was probably registered as a damn Republican because he couldn't register as a Democrat in the South and in Atlanta. But anyway, that's beside the point. I just thought that the whole civil rights movement, like the Black Lives Matter movement, has been co-opted. When you look back at the statistics, blacks were coming out of poverty at about 20% every 10 years. We were doing well. Then you get the civil rights laws and you get the affirmative action laws, and we start going backwards. Higher unemployment. The racial tinge is kicked up. Everybody said, well, affirmative action is about unqualified blacks and token blacks, which was bullshit. It was about blacks being allowed to have an opportunity in areas they were denied. I was one of the first blacks to be hired as an intern at General Motors, at Truck and Coach in Pontiac.
300-400 miles away from his house, and he gets into another fight. Now, instead of her coming out as a religious woman, she'd say, "Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus." She goes to church. She could have said and should have said, and I even asked her this question. I got in one of her virtual town halls when she was running for Miami-Dade Commission last month. She just lost by 300 votes. I actually asked her, I said, "Would you please now forgive George Zimmerman? Maybe the country can heal if you do so." And I even said, the Bible says God has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. And she said, went in 3 minutes, and no, I will not forgive him. I'll never forgive him. But she had the power 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. She could have said, look, I know my son was very troubled. I kicked him out. He kept getting into fights, and I don't want anyone else to be hurt from this. And this was not a racial incident. And let's just everybody calm down. She could have done that. But to this day, she refuses to do that. And she spent the last 8 years going around the country to colleges saying things like, people hate you so much because of the color of your skin, they want to shoot you. And she got book and movie deals. She got $2 million from the Homeowners Association. She signed a deal with Jay-Z for her movie. She recorded a rap song. So she became one of those typical people that use race to enrich themselves. And for her, instead of saying, yeah, I kicked my son out of the house every time he got in trouble, I shouldn't have done that, she chose a racial scapegoat, which was George Zimmerman. And the same way, the Democrat Party, politically, instead of saying all of our policies, having teachers' unions and terrible schools and drug cultures and single mothers and raising taxes and kicking all these businesses out of our cities, these are terrible policies. No, they don't say that. They say, well, there's a racial scapegoat. The racial scapegoat is America. It's because of racism that all of our policies don't work. And that's where they continue this idea that America somehow now it's systemically racist. You don't see it, so it's in the system. Well, where is it? Well, it's a microaggression. So this is the level we've gotten to because I think we have made tremendous progress for years and years, but you have these political narratives that capitalize on these individual cases where they try to make racial scapegoats not only out of individuals, but out of the entire system.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think you're right in some respects. Yes, that's not a question. But Trayvon was a poor example. Trayvon, obviously, as I've always said about the situation, I had problems with any young boy, 17, 18 years old, who's trying to confront a grown ass man at night. I got a problem with that. Why would he think that he could confront anybody at 17, 18 years old? That's a kid who, in my opinion, is looking for trouble.
Well, look, Trayvon was a very troubled kid.
He should have ran home.
Of the story. If you go to the TrayvonHoax.com, you can actually see the whole movie right there. But you can see what was really going on. Gun dealing. He lost his stepmother was a big thing. That's why he was acting out. His father divorced his stepmother. He'd been there for 16 years. He had to go live with Sabrina Fulton. Acting out, getting into heavy marijuana use, selling guns, and fighting a lot. And he got into this fight. Unfortunately, a very tragic story. In the film, I don't really,
I don't understand.
I talk about Trayvon is not a bad kid, but he got into some bad things. And the worst story, which you see, is they used a fake witness to get Zimmerman arrested.
Yeah, and that was tragic, and somebody needs to pay for that. As you see today, people aren't paying. People are.
Well, Zimmerman has a lawsuit going. He's got a lawsuit against Trayvon's parents, against Rachel Gentile, Diamond Eugene for civil conspiracy, defamation, also against Crump. He's got that ridiculous book he wrote called Open Season, Legalized Genocide of Colored People. He's pushing. By the way, that book is published by HarperCollins, which is also being sued by Zimmerman for defamation. Guess who owns HarperCollins? The Murdochs. So there's a lot of corporate interests, it looks like, behind some of this stuff. And that don't mind some of this division because they do put on a lot of movies and TV and push these narratives, and they don't really understand how damaging they are to the country. I don't know if they care.
Well, if anything that I've seen come out of all of this, it's that people are paying attention. I think that the cases that we see before us, there's a great case in Texas right now where, and this is because of, I think, this whole thing about the emphasis on how cops interact with black people. This happened like last week in a place called Wolf Trail or Wolf Fox or something, Texas, where this cop shoots this black dude who's walking away, who tried to, he's a peacemaker. He's a hero in the town. Everybody loved this guy, white, black. They testified how wonderful this guy was. He was, just a pillar in the community. And he's trying to break up a fight, and this cop tasered the guy. And then after he tasered the guy, he pulled out his gun and shot him. And the Texas Rangers.
Let me tell you what I took away from that. Because here's what I'm taking away. I'm waiting to hear more information. I'm not going to believe anything.
Well, the Texas Rangers.
They tell us up front. Well, this is what we hear. We hear
the
this
Texas
guy
Rangers
was breaking up a fight.
The Texas Rangers.
Mr. Do-gooder.
Wait a minute. The Texas Rangers is no friend of black people. Let's be clear. The Texas Rangers were the guys who said.
Well, look, I'm just saying. I'm waiting. Every time you hear an incident like this, like I remember a year or so ago, there was a black girl in Virginia that said some white kids cut off her dreadlocks. I was like, my God, that's terrible. 3 days later, the mother said she made it up. But that's not a policeman. But that's not a policeman shooting an unarmed citizen. I just want to say the media looks for racial incidences.
I don't think so, Joe. I don't think so.
Let me say this. There's been 6 major noose stories in the past 4 or 5 years. 6 major stories of a noose put somewhere. All 6 of them turned out to be hoaxes.
Like what?
So I'm just saying, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for more evidence every time I hear something. Don't believe the media because
I'm not talking about the media, Joel. I'm talking about the Texas Rangers, which is a bunch of conservative.
What I'm telling you is, here's what the media tells it. Whatever the media says, this is a super nice guy. He was breaking up a fight. I also read that he tried to shake the hands with the police,
right,
and then got blown away.
Right.
So I'm waiting till later because later, I'm not saying necessarily this case, but later on we find out maybe this guy was beating up somebody and he tried to take the policeman's weapon. You see, so we don't know. So I'm saying never believe the initial story because it always turns out to be wrong. That's the experience we have. The initial story is always wrong.
I don't think so. I don't think the initial story is always wrong. Just like I pointed out.
Hands up, don't shoot. Was that a true story? No.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Joel. If you had done your homework, I got a clip I will send you that was taken. Whoa, wait a minute. Let me finish.
I'm just saying, until I do my homework, I don't believe anything.
I have a clip that I will send you that they took down from the internet, but I recorded it. And because I knew they were going to take it down, and they're like 4 white dudes running toward the policeman and Michael Brown, and they're saying, "Hey, dude, stop shooting!" The guy got his hands up. 4 white dudes, they're construction guys, and they're running. Say, "Hey, he got his hands up! Stop shooting, man! Stop shooting!" And that tape has disappeared. It's on my system though. I hope nobody hacks my damn system because I said that. But I better take it off and put it on a disk drive or something. But that never really came out. And so so when you look at these people, and this is the other thing you have to understand, when these cops can put so much pressure on you, once those lights leave, you are totally exposed. And the little boy who claimed that lie or whatever, made up the story, they probably told him, "Hey, these lights are not going to be here for long, dude, and we're going to get you." I mean,
Well, I'm saying we find out in court, like when with these police officers, these black, white, and brown police officers all go to jail to trial, like in a year for George Floyd's murder. They're going to come in and say, "Look, the police manual tells us to kneel on the back of the guy's head."
They weren't on the back of his head. What don't you get? They were on his carotid artery. What don't you get about that?
Carotid artery is in front, not on the back.
He was literally. Well, look at it. Look at the tape again. He was leaning. It's not in the front. It's on the side of your neck. It's an artery. It's an artery that we suppress. We cut it off to cut off the blood to your brain. Okay, that's what we do.
The point is, when they go to trial for murder, maybe it was excessive use of force, maybe it was negligence, but he certainly died of a drug overdose and not asphyxiation. So my point is, when we find out a year later that all the rioting and all the reactions were to a media narrative or sometimes to a video that we didn't know the whole story, and we should have known the whole story had they released the body cam footage.
Yeah, but Joe, the bottom line is the people who rioted weren't the people who were in the community. If you want to cover something, why don't you cover this? Black Lives Matter cut a deal with the mayor of Chicago, and look up this story. She cut the Black Lives Matter and Governor, that dictatorial city mayor that we have, Lightfoot. They cut a deal that the Black Lives Matter group would shut down Dan Ryan Freeway for several hours. The Black Lives Matter group showed up. The people in the neighborhood showed up and said, "Get your butt back in your cars, back on the train, back on your buses, and get the hell out of our neighborhood." And guess what? Dan Ryan didn't get shot down because the people are not participating in that. The people in the neighborhood, these are all people who are outside of the country, outside of the cities, outside of the state, all those people in Kenosha, those people in Minnesota, Minneapolis, the majority of them were not local people. That's what people need to focus on.
They went and busted up Santa Monica and Rodeo and Melrose, so this has nothing to do with anything. I mean, they are typically, as was the case with the Trayvon Martin case, the demand is, we just want an arrest. Nothing. We just want an arrest.
Well, those are people. Those are not. Those.
And they guys got arrested with no investigation. That's the new standard. Lynching. They want to get them.
Well,
lynched.
That's not true. And the bottom line is, these police officers that they have today, they need to get their asses in gym. They need to take these standards for police officers. They need to put them back to the higher standards. They've lowered the standards for police officers so women could become police officers. So that's why you get 2 white males in Atlanta who get beat up by one black man who's supposed to be drunk, and two perfectly fine, healthy white male police officers get their asses kicked by one drunk black man. Come on, get in the gym. The standards are too low for police officers today. And that's largely because
most of them are pretty. Most of them look like they're on steroids. They're so.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I can show you a picture. I can send you a picture of me and several cops that was taken on Michigan Avenue 2 months ago, and these guys don't look like they were in the gym at all. So they need to get in the gym. They've lowered the standards, and as a consequence, when I came along, a police officer would beat your butt. You got smart with a police officer, he wouldn't pull out his gun and shoot you. He'd beat the crap out you with his nightstick or with his hand. You didn't get smart with cops when I was coming along. You respected cops. And if the cops didn't respect you, you just said, oh, okay, I'll just see you. You just kept your mouth shut and saw him in court. I mean, and that's what we take, and that's what I teach, and that's what other people teach their children to do in order to survive out here, because you can get shot on a traffic stop. I've had guns pulled on me 12 times on traffic stops. No criminal offense. Sometimes I was in my damn naval uniform, an officer's uniform. At one time I had fucking skis on the car, and a guy accused me of being a damn suspect in a robbery. I mean, bullshit. I'm in a Porsche with skis on the back of the car with a girl in the car. Really? I mean, she's still traumatized by that. She was talking about that last week. And that happened 40 years ago.
Well, look, I'm going to have to go in a couple minutes, but I do want your audience, everyone, to go to thetrayvonhooks.com, and you really get a whole different perspective on where this entire BLM movement started, what it was based on. And when you find out it was based on a fake witness, it really changes your perspective.
No question. And it's fake. And black people aren't supporting it. That's what you need to report. That the average black person is not supporting Black Lives Matter. You need to report that.
I agree, and they don't support using fake witnesses, and they don't support.
Well, they don't support the right. Wait a minute.
Or they don't support people using them for an agenda.
Joe, they don't support the rioting. They don't support the burning. They don't support the looting. Nobody's reporting that. People like you need to focus on that. That these people don't represent Black America. Nobody voted these people to represent these two lesbians and this other woman from Africa. Nobody voted these women to put forth an agenda or manifesto for Black America.
Well, unfortunately, corporate America and the Democrat Party revere them as somehow representing Black people, and they don't. And I was in Chicago for my movie "There's No Place Like Utopia." I interviewed a lot of Black folks on the South Side there. They were like conservatives. They said, we want more police. We don't want legalized marijuana. We don't want illegals coming in and taking our jobs.
We don't want same-sex marriage.
Conservative.
We don't want same-sex marriage.
Right, same thing, but they got sucked into supporting Obama, I guess, because of
they didn't get sucked in.
Color,
they didn't get sucked in.
He was the opposite of everything that they want politically.
They didn't get sucked into supporting Obama. See, it's this.
They did support Obama, even though the policies he had were the opposite of everything they wanted.
But that's most Black people who support the Democrat Party, and I've said for years that these people vote against their interests. It's nothing new. They vote any Black person who votes Democrat or supports Democrats is voting against his or her own interests as Black people. As I've pointed out a long time before Trump or anybody else, these cities are run by Democrats. Let's not make any bones about it. The first Mayor Daley ran a damn freeway down the most prosperous and the most economically successful street or area for Blacks in America. He ran a damn freeway right down the middle of it. She said, take this, Negroes. And these Negroes went back and voted for him for 20 years because I'm a Democrat. They're just stupid. I say that Black Americans are politically, I used to say unsophisticated, but now I just say stupid because I'm so frustrated. Anyway.
I'll say they got a lot to
bullshit.
I'll say unsophisticated. I would say that
bullshit.
I think they need to match up what is good for them with who is representing them.
It's not going to happen.
People that they're
it's
voting
not going to happen because they
are not fulfilling the policies that would help them.
It's not going to happen because their mothers were Democrats and their father and their grandma. Everybody was a Democrat. And I said, well, they were stupid. And they go, are you calling my grandparents stupid? Yeah. Are you calling my parents stupid? Yeah. And if you vote Democrat, I'm calling you stupid.
Look, Michelle Obama's father was a Democrat Party precinct captain.
Yeah, that's Chicago.
I don't know exactly what that is, but it has something to do. What does that do? You're supposed to get everybody else in the neighborhood to vote Democrat. Is that what that is?
Well, he was also a police officer. So, that's the most important thing. He was a police officer, and he provided a middle-class life for Michelle and her brother, Craig, both of them who grew up in a middle-class neighborhood and weren't bothered because they were in a middle class neighborhood, and the daddy was a cop, and they went to good schools. They both of them ended up going to Princeton, where Craig Robinson still holds the rebound record at Princeton University. So, Michelle is an interesting person. Her whole family's just a first class operation, and I don't know how Barack picked her, and that's good. But at the end of the day, Barack Obama is a fraud. Barack Obama is a Muslim. When he came to Chicago, he was wearing a sarah and calling himself Barry Obama. And Mayor, what's his name? Reverend Wright gave Barack all his blackness and gave him his political credibility. And that's what he used Michelle for, to certify his political his blackness, so to speak. When you look at when you look at the women that Barack, you look at the women that Barack,
he did grow up in a.
When you look at the women that Barack dated before Michelle, they were all white, and two of these women wrote books, and nobody, if you go read those books, they tell a totally different story about Barry Obama. He's what we call he was what we call a white boy. He acted white, he talked white, he hung with the white kids. Nobody black remembers Barack from Columbia. The stories just go on and on and on. So, who is this masked man?
I made the film. I made the film Dreams from My Real Father, like an alternate history of Barack Obama's life.
I remember.
He did in Hawaii. His mother's white. He grew up with white grandparents, a white family. He had no African-American black experience whatsoever.
Well, he did with Frank Lloyd Davis, that pedophile.
He was raised by Frank Marshall Davis, the Chicago communist who went to Hawaii working for the Soviet Union.
Yeah, but he was a pedophile. That's why he ran to Hawaii. He was being charged with a pedophile case.
All right. Well, I'm not going to comment on that because I don't know too much about that. But Dom Trotter is the state senator up there. Was a state senator in Chicago. He called Barack a white man in blackface.
No question. That's what they all called him.
He's supported by all these liberals, and he had no street cred. That's why in his book Dreams from My Father, he tried to make himself out as suffering from discrimination in Hawaii, which is totally bullshit. I met his best friend named Keith Kakagawa, who was in prison in Corcoran State Prison. I became very good friends with him out here in California.
Why was he in prison? Why was he in prison, man? Drugs?
He was in prison for a series of drug offenses and habitual use, and he kept getting sent back to prison. And so he told me the whole story of Obama's relationship with Frank Marshall Davis in Hawaii, how he found out that was his real father, by the way. People don't really know that too much. The Kenyan Obama, I think, and it's pretty much documented in my film and from his friends, the Kenyan Obama was kind of a sham marriage to cover up the pregnancy of Frank Marshall Davis, of his mother. And Obama, even if you don't care about the paternity, which is not that important, Obama was raised by Frank Marshall Davis and radicalized by him in Hawaii. And that's how he became such a far left radical. And he sought the path to political power using Chicago and the black community as his base, even though he had no experience whatsoever.
None.
As an African American.
Well, Donnie Trotter is an interesting character in himself. Yeah. Donnie, he was jealous of Barack, but the guy you should have talked to, it was Barack Obama's political godfather, and that was Emil Jones. That was the guy who had the credibility.
Yeah.
So if you want to know about,
helped him. I think he's the one that got him to run for Senate. That kind of gave him the go ahead to run for Senate.
He did give him the go ahead to run, but he didn't get. Yeah. I know Emil very well, and we used to talk about Barack all the time. So that's the guy who you should get to write a book if you really want to know about the real political Barack Obama, because if Barack would never have been a U.S. senator without Emil's help.
That's what I understood. Well, hook me up next time I come to Chicago. I got to go right now, but I'd love to do another conversation.
Hey, man, it was great. It's always great
coming to Chicago.
Hey, you call those childhood friends of yours. I want to talk to them about their racial harmony in East Tennessee.
Okay, I'll do it.
Hey, man, as always. Hey, Joe, we got to do it again, man. And that project you're working on, let me know. I'll help you out as much as I can.
I appreciate it. I'll be in Chicago and look forward to our next conversation.
Okay,
Thanks
dude.
Again.
Be good. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's my friend, Joe. we just rolled, man. We rolled for a long time, rolled right through the break. And, you know, we do what we do here at Red State Talk Radio and the Reality Check out here on YouTube. So I got to get going. I got some things to catch up on. It was good. I hope you enjoyed the show, guys. If you enjoyed the show, give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to have your friends call in and look at the show because, you know, we're going to rock and roll. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about this confirmation hearing. We should hear from Amy, Judge Bartlett, Barrett. Let's see, tomorrow. Yeah, we're gonna she'll start talking about 9:00 Eastern. So we will hear from her and we're gonna rock and roll. That's all I'm gonna tell you. Frank will be with us, Frank Venucio. Give us a call. Give us a call at 215-867-8255. See ya. Have a good one. Da-da. Here we go.
Dos, uno, dos, tres, cuatro. You see that black boy over there running scared. His old man in a bottle.